feel like I didn't belong anywhere when I was young, so that's why I was into like mischievous things, and that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. Like
Good money for a kid, right?
I think I made like 2 G's that day. After that, the next week I called the Gap and I'm like, yo, that was it, and that was the last job I ever had. I had a store. I was just barely eating. I was still living in my parents' house, but with that, I knew that there was more. So the FBI shows up at my door with guns drawn, like freeze FBI, and peace, y'all. What's good? It's your boy Baz right here, chilling in MIA with my boy David from the MIA as well. 305 424 004. If for those that
What 104?
104. Okay, so for those that don't know, we're here to kick off this podcast, the 424 podcast, and the main goal is to inspire everybody and to inspire people to, follow their dreams, because a lot of people right outside right now, they're not really living a fulfilled life. So the purpose of this podcast is to show y'all what we got going on with our new brand and what we got in store now and in the future as well. So I came all the way from the Shy to see my boy David. Tell him what's up. Tell him where you're from. Tell him a little bit about you.
All right. Well, my name is David. Born and raised in Miami. Half American, half Colombian. I love my city. I'm a proud Muslim too. Love my brothers, my sisters out there. We stay strong even on the streets and behind bars. And I'm happy, to welcome everybody today. I'm happy to talk about our experience. Today we're here to talk about a comeback story of entrepreneurs that we fell and we rose again.
Right. Again, so it's going to be the 424 podcast. This is the first episode. So bear with us, because, this is our first one. We're just getting started on this. And again, the goal is to inspire those that want to live their dreams and, have ambitions and goals that they have, for themselves, and just let people know that if two people like us right here in front of the cameras can go to prison, make mistakes, and then come out of prison and do something with their lives and fulfill their dreams, then if we can do it, anybody could do it. So with that said, just wanted to kick it off real quick, and just kick off what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be a series of different people coming in, telling their stories, mainly highlighting the story of the underdog. The guys that wanted to have, they wanted to do something with their life, but don't really come from much. Me being coming from an immigrant family.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I come from an immigrant family. My mom's Mexican. She came from Mexico in the 70s. My dad's from Pakistan, so I also came in the 70s. They got married, fell in love, had me and my brother, and yeah, it's just been pretty much a journey since then. And we didn't come from nothing. My parents were working hard every day. My dad drove a cab. My mom cleaned hotel rooms, and we just kind of lived a very, I wouldn't say we were poor, but we definitely didn't have no bread. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we weren't really taught much about like entrepreneurship or living your dream. I mean, like how your moms came from a different country, like, you don't really, as long as you made it to America, that was the goal, like they made it, for those that know that immigrant story, or that, when the goal is just to make it here, so they made it here and they had us, and they're just like, all right, just go to school. And that was the thing. They were just happy to be here. So long story short, fast forward, dropped out of school and didn't know what to do with my life. So I started DJing.
Wait, so you're a high school dropout?
Yeah, I'm a high school dropout. I actually got kicked out because I never went. So I was yeah, I was
bad kid.
I mean, school wasn't my thing, I was like basically diagnosed as an adult with ADHD. I didn't know I had that, as a young kid. So like, I knew I didn't want to be in school. I knew I wanted to do something. So I started DJing. I started getting into, graffiti and really get immersed in the hip hop culture. And that's kind of like what led me to like the path that I went to. And then in 2 is when I opened up my first store called The Basement, which was like a hip hop shop where we used to sell vinyl, records, graffiti supplies, spray paint. I mean, anything that was down with the culture, we
So
sold it.
so you got this place and you were operating at this hip hop shop.
Yeah.
It was whose building was that?
So it was actually it's a funny story about that. It was actually a store that was across the street from my grammar school, and that's the place where when we used to cut school, we used to go there and play video games, and we used to smoke weed, roll blunts there, and just kind of mess around there because that's what kids do. You know what I'm saying? Fast forward 4 years later, I ended up, you know, seeing the sign for rent, and I was like, yo, maybe I could put a store in there. I don't know. I mean, that's like the short version of it. At the end of the day, like I had a credit card that I just did a cash advance on it and put a deposit in and just opened up the store. And I was like, all right, let me see if I can make some money with this. So I mean, again, that's more like the fast version of it. It was just a lot. As a teenager, I got into a lot of trouble, getting arrested and shit like that. So it was like that's what led me to like changing my life and pursuing entrepreneurship because I'm like, how much am I gonna make? You know what I'm saying? Working at a company, what I'm saying? Making, I think at the time was like 650 an hour, like minimum wage.
But you did work some jobs now. I mean, I know you've worked hard pretty much most of your life. So when did you start as, say, like, well, for lack of a better term, as an employee, and when did you start becoming a boss?
All right, so at 16, I got my first job. I was bagging groceries. I had plenty of jobs. I think I had like at least 15 jobs before I really like did the entrepreneur thing or small business owner because there is a difference, and I'll explain
But
that.
what type of jobs were these? Just
So the first job was bagging groceries. You buy groceries and you just bag them. Bag the food. After that, got fired there, and then 3 months later, I'm working at Best Buy, one of those type of jobs. And then I just kept getting in trouble, and that's when my pops was like, "Yo, um, I need you to just move to Cali and send me to my uncle to kind of get my life together because I wasn't."
oh, Fresh Prince of Bel Air
Yeah,
style.
yeah, kinda. So basically, I went to Cali. I started working at this car sales space. Like it was like a Dodge dealership. Started learning how to sell, and that's what really like piqued my interest. Like, oh man, as long as I could sell, you can always make money. So that's a gem that I took out of that job. And as soon as I came back from Cali, I got a job at Honda. I started selling cars, and that was cool. But I was still working for somebody, and I wasn't really feeling that. So that's how that whole transition came, where I'm like, all right, I gotta do something else.
So it's like you evolved. You went from like bagging the groceries, just bottom end, to now you're interacting with customers at a major retail location, and then you transition finally to your selling cars, which for a lot of people, just even in the job or the entrepreneurship race, that's as far as it'll go, a highly paid sales commission job.
Yeah, I think it was like you get like 20% off the gross sales from like cars back then. I don't know what
Which
they're.
for a car, that's excellent, man. I mean, if you're selling like a 10 grand car, it's 2 racks.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. So it was good money again, but like if everybody knows that sells anybody that sells cars, there's like a lot of hours that you got to put in, 12-hour shifts. It's a stressful job, and I was like 18 at the time, and I'm like, why am I working all these hours? I'm like, I'm a kid, and I got these old men I'm competing with. And don't get me wrong, like I was selling, but like it wasn't really the path that I wanted to do. And again, my passion was like hip hop, and I was DJing, I was making beats. Like I wanted to be a rapper. Like I wanted to be a kind of like a low key like DJ Khaled in a way. Like have my own like
Okay,
yeah, like a
okay.
little like a like
So you had
producer.
you had some
Yeah,
creative streaks in you, bro. You're in
yeah.
the streets. You wanted to tell the story, just like a lot of us did.
So yeah, being a mixed race kid from Chicago and not really having a big family in the city, I needed to find my tribe. You know what I'm saying? And like because there was no Mexican, Pakistani, Muslim kid, besides my brother. But me and him never really like. I feel like I didn't belong anywhere when I was young, so that's why like I was into like mischievous things and getting into the hip hop culture and doing graffiti and like spray painting like on the walls and putting my name up there because I'm like, and I was trying to do anything to fit in, and graffiti was a way that let me do that. DJing was a way that allowed me to represent and express myself like creatively. You know what I'm saying? So that was cool. So then I started like buying equipment with that like car dealership
So
job.
now you're reinvesting into a passion of yours.
Yeah, exactly. So I started making these mixtapes, and then like I would like just get all the new music. And back in the days, we used to use vinyl, and we would just record it on a tape deck. We used to use like a DAT player, digital audio tape. It's so old school. I don't even know what that is, but I made these tapes. We sold actual tapes, and CDs were just coming out at the time. It was like '97. So then we started like, not we, I started making these tapes and CDs and just selling them on the street.
Man, where'd that land you in the end?
Oh man, I mean, I made some money with that, and that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. Like, yeah, I mean, I made some good money with the
Good money
pod
for a
with the,
kid.
huh?
Good money for a kid, right?
I mean, yeah. So if you think about it, like, remember the CDs were 30 cents, and then another 10 cents for the case. You
I
do it.
used to bootleg CDs too, dude. I know.
Yeah. So then, and I used to have some like pride in my craft. So I would make it like full color, and like I would put the labels on the CD. So I would make it look presentable. Shrink wrap it. I bought a shrink wrap machine, and I'm selling them for like 10, $15. We would go to like festivals, and we would post up and sell the mixtapes, and then go to sell to other stores wholesale, like $5 each one. They would sell it for 15. So, being a DJ doing that and selling it wholesale, like it was decent money at the time. But that's when I got my last job, which was at the Gap. Shout out to Kanye West because that was his last job too. He used to work at the Gap as well. So, so yeah, working there, and then I threw this MC battle, with the Gap money, and I threw this battle where it was like we're doing the MC battle, with people battling with like lyrics, like going against each other. I was DJing the event. I was charging like at the door $20 a pop, $40 if you were battling. So I doubled up on that, and then I think that was like the first event where I actually made money. I think I made like 2 G's that day. After that, the next week I called the Gap, and I'm like, yo, that was it, and that was the last job I ever had. So after that, with that money, that's when I got the store, and that's when the basement opened up, and that was like my real like entrance to entrepreneurship. So
Awesome, man.
yeah,
Awesome.
I don't think I ever told you that, right? like that whole story.
Well, not so linearly, but here and there I've heard it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but again, that's my like brief summary. Again, this podcast is, I wanted to have fun with my guy right here. Like, for those of y'all that don't know, I met David in 2019, right before COVID hit. We were in federal prison together. We were at FCI Ashland.
yep,
We
you
were in,
probably can't find it on a map, but it's there
yeah, so we were in there, both in there for,
in Kentucky
yeah, Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky, right in the border from West Virginia.
and Ohio.
Yeah, and we were both in there for first time nonviolent offenses.
Wow.
There were drug offenses. They gave me 135 months for the first time I ever got in trouble. And it was an experience, man. It was traumatizing, from being, my mixtape days to, being charged with like 5 bricks of cocaine and conspiracy and guns. And it's just wild how like those two worlds intersected. Like I still think about it. I'm like, how did I do? How did I end up like in that situation?
Well, we okay. So we know that like you come from an immigrant background. You worked some kind of like menial entry level jobs for a stint in your life when you were younger, and so basically you gave entrepreneurship your all. You talked about like not fitting in or just doing mischievous kid stuff like on the street. What do you think set you up kind of like on that pathway, from you could say kind of like somewhat of like a good start to suddenly the fall, Was there an ascent or was it a downward spiral? How would you describe it?
And you're talking about the prison stint, like how I got
Like
into that.
where how did you so you started pretty good here, right? Before the fall, tell us about the rise.
So the rise, if you want to call it that, in like business terms, like a rise, like, you're supposed to make some bread, but coming from where we come from, like, just having a store was a win, like, again, we lived in an apartment, like, we didn't have any. I shared a room with my brother, like, we don't come from, like, no bread, no money, no, like, rich family, no rich uncle or nothing, like, so everything that we had was, like, on us, so to say it was a rise per se, like, I wouldn't say it, like, in a business term, but, like, yeah, as a 20-year-old kid, I had a store, I was just barely eating, I was still living in my parents' house, and but with that, I knew that there was more. So about after like 2 years in business, I started realizing like, all right, this is not enough for me to sustain myself. So I started like focusing on retail. I remember with my store, I didn't tell you, but I was doing the mixtape still. I had a recording studio in there. Like I'm over here selling whatever I could to survive. And once I got rid of all that stuff and really focused on the retail part, that's when like shit started getting better. For instance, I started a marketing company with the record labels, like getting checks from Def Jam, Universal Records, and all these other record labels that had marketing dollars for stores like mine. I became a SoundScan reporter, so that was reporting the Billboard magazine, really focused on that. Also, that's 2006 is when I opened up my second store in a shopping mall. So with those two stores, that's when I was finally like understanding business in the sense where like kind of like that rise you were saying. But again, as a 23, 24-year-old kid, it was okay. I was probably making like 3, 4 G's a month, which again, rise for that kid, but not really, and not to downplay myself, but just calling it what it is.
Well,
Like,
20, 30 G's a month is pretty substantial for.
I mean, yeah, for like making it on your own, yeah, but
Well, where
still.
were you at this point in your early 20s?
Yeah, I was like 23 years old. I was, I had the two stores, and then that's when that the that was the time when all the mortgage companies and all the banks were giving money to everybody with a heartbeat. Right? It was like
Yeah, yeah, that was
2006.
the subprime mortgage era before the financial crash of 2008. You could have written your name and gotten a loan.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, man, I gotta do something because remember it was the days of Napster and like my primary form of income was music. Like I was selling music, like CDs. Like that was how I made my money. And as everybody knows, like now you just stream. Like I don't even know if people remember. Like so, yeah. At that time, I was doing okay with the two stores, the balance, but I knew there was something inside me was like this is not gonna last. Like the MP3s were coming. I was scared. I was like, what am I gonna do? I was like nervous. I have to do something else besides selling music. So what can I sell? And at the time, like the fashion game was taking off, specifically like streetwear. Like that was a big thing, and it was so new. Like there wasn't like how it is now with the fashion game and like
Now
the
I remember,
streetwear.
man, that was back in the day with Fat Farm and
Yeah.
Fubu and Sean John
Yeah,
and
so that
yeah,
was like called urban wear, and that was like, yeah,
Rockaware.
I knew like I couldn't afford like to get into that space because I knew that needed like big dollars to sustain that and like to invest in those brands. But the streetwear thing was more like my lane because it was like more independent style of brands, and it was like the skateboarders, and like the graffiti guys. Like we would all like have these cool shirts and just didn't really cost that much, and these smaller brands would come up and they would have these brands for the low, and it would be like whatever $15 wholesale, $14. I didn't have a minimum order, so like I started looking into that, and I started selling it at my store with the clothes, and it would sell. And I don't know if you remember, like there were these shirts with they used to have the guns on the shirts, like that was like a big thing. So then I put a light bulb. I mean, a light bulb came in my head, and I said, "What if I just sell clothes? Because you can't download that, right? You gotta buy clothes. You know what I'm saying?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, where am I gonna sell it?" That neighborhood that I was at, it wasn't really it. So I was like, I need to move to another neighborhood. And then that's when the Wicker Park store came about, and I seen one day I just seen this building and it said for sale by owner. This is the quick version too. For sale by owner. I called the number. Dude didn't even speak no English. I called him like, oye, bueno, está Carlos, and he was like, no, no habla inglés. I mean, that's how I knew he didn't speak English. So I was like, but the name on the thing said Carlos. I'm like, I asked him like, ¿Cuánto quiere para el edificio? He was like 500,000. Like 500,000. I was like, you're talking to a guy that was like making 2, 3 G's a month. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, let's see it. I went to go see it, and then I was like, all right, let me figure out how to like get this
Put
bread.
the deal together.
Yeah, so I called a few banks, and a lot of them shut me down. But then, like you said, this one bank called Lehman Brothers. I don't know if you guys heard of them, but
Yeah, they were big. They got Lehman Brothers went down in the financial collapse along with Bear Stearns.
yeah, exactly. So, but they did come through. They were like 500,000. Yeah, we'll just say you make 200 quarter mil. We'll just say that you did that, and we all knew that I didn't make that. But they're like, oh, yeah, it's called stated income. Don't worry, I'm gonna put it on there. And this is again fast version. I don't want to bore everybody, but like, got the loan.
Bro, this is your journey. So you get the loan. You know, it's not the best loan in the world.
Yeah,
You don't know, what's gonna happen, but you already know that you're in business, that you're doing retail. So okay, now you got your own headquarters,
yeah.
your
So I
enterprise.
closed on it, and I'm like, oh shit. And this building needed so much work, and I'm like, I'm all in 500,000. I don't got no money for like rehab money or nothing. I'm just like, I got this big ass building, and I'm like, shit. What do I do now? I just I had some credit cards. I bought a bunch of shirts that I was telling you. I moved a bunch of things, and I put some CDs in there, DVDs, just whatever I could sell. Skateboards were in there, and just made this third location, the basement. Because remember, I had the one in the mall, and then I had the little one. This was 2007. 2008 came, and it was a wrap. I closed the first store, and then the one in the mall. Ended up closing that one. So then I had one more store left.
So you just your building.
Yeah, which is the
So
building.
you went from expanding to 3 stores, one purchase, 2 rentals, to basically you just consolidated. Decide I'm not going to give these other storefronts my money. I got my castle. I'm going to focus there.
Exactly. And yeah, so then like I was losing everything. I wasn't paying my bills. Again, I was nervous, scared again. Like what am I gonna do?
I mean, who's not going to be scared, bro?
Yeah.
You got a $500,000 asset. Your two other shops is it's do or die.
Yeah. So that was I lost those other two stores. People were wondering like what's going on with the basement, and this was like at the time it was like an iconic staple of hip hop, of Chicago hip hop culture because I was the guy like um supporting the local artists and like, people would sell their music at my shop. I would have open mics there. Like it
Mm,
was like a
You
hub.
ever you ever you ever rub elbows with some celebrities
Yeah, I mean, they
due to
would
your
come
game?
through. Yeah, I mean, because of who I was and who the store was anyway. It wasn't really me. It was more like what the store represented, and like people would come and yeah. So I was at the point where I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was at the time my back was against the wall. My back was against the wall. I didn't know what to do at the time. I was running out of money. My credit was slipping. I still had good credit, thank God, but like no bank was giving me any more money. I was calling the credit card companies like, "Hey, can you give me a credit limit increase?" They're like, "Hell no. You over here owe all this money. Like, we're not giving you anything." And then long story short, it's like I I I just kind of like was kind of at a standstill. And, because being who I was in the industry and knowing the people that I knew, yeah, what I was have my friends from back in the days, like the old heads, would come in and like support the store because during the recession. Now this is the full blown recession now, just so you know. This
Yeah,
this is
so
this was the
I get kind of the timeline.
yeah
Lehman Brothers,
yeah the Great Recession it was called.
yeah, great.
Nobody had money.
Well, yeah, your storefronts are falling apart. You bought an overpriced building. Options seem to be closing in on you more than opening.
Exactly. And then because of the homies that I knew from back in my neighborhood, like they would always come and support, and they would come in to spend, pull up in Benzes, Beamers, and all kinds of nice cars. And I'm over here like they coming in. These are my guys.
Damn, and what were they into?
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to
What
know.
do you mean exactly? We're talking to our audience. You're not just talking to me.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, like, I knew what they were into, and I would just joke around, and I would talk to my guys. I'd be like, "Damn, man, like, doing pretty good out there with them brand new cars, man.
Let
Like,
me eat some too.
yeah, but nah, but it's the funny thing is like because they were good friends of mine and they respected what I did and how I came up, so to speak. Like,
So they didn't want to drag you into the
nah,
life.
but what they did say was, hey, if you ever need anything, just ask. And then I knew what they meant, and I was just like, nah, I appreciate that. Like it was definitely something to think about, but I was like, nah. I was very prideful too because of how I came up. I just had good credit and
I get
took
it
a
because
risk.
up to this part, except for maybe some childhood shenanigans and some, stupid shit here and there, like you came up pretty clean.
Yeah, exactly.
You came up basically doing the right thing and working hard and keeping your head down and defying the odds until, the Great Recession happened.
Yeah, exactly. So then, like, I would say like 6 months later, like, just things got worse. It was at the end of '08, and I'm at a bar, and I don't know. I don't remember the scene too vividly, but it was again seeing my guys at the club or at the bar, and they're popping bottles, like they're having fun. They got girls, like it's like this life, and I'm just like the opposite of living that life, and I'm like, damn,
Working, tired, exhausted,
exhausted,
stressed, broke.
drinking, yeah, broke, drinking, in debt, and like about to lose my the only thing that I have left. And then one of my guys was like, "Hey, what's up, bro? You good? Like, you look kind of fucked up." And I'm just like, "Nah, man, just stressed." And then again, "Hey, man, I told you if you ever need anything, man, oh, we got you." And then I'm like, "All right, well, what do you mean you got me? Like, can I borrow some money?" And then they're like, Well, no, we don't really borrow money, but I got some other things that we can do for you." And then I was just like, "Well."
And what they do for you?
Well, at the end of the day, they offered me, something that they could let me hold, and
And what was that? What was that something?
so they were into the weed business, and they're like, "Yeah, we got weed for sale. I'll give you a pound, see what you could do with it, and take it from there." And
Okay, okay. So you started with the pound. That's a lot more than I started with. I remember buying like like a half ounce, swearing I was gonna be, the next Pablo Escobar and just selling 5, 10 pieces on the, you know, at the park by my house. So you started with a pound, so that means that you were already with some guys that had a little bit of weight, a little bit of money.
yeah, and again, like telling the story about what happened and how it went from the rise to fall. And I guess it's fair to ask those questions. Um, but I want this podcast to be also like more of a
Well, we
platform.
well we got to know where you came from
Hmm.
to know
We're
for the
all where.
audience to know where we're going.
Nah, I got you. That's fair. So yeah, long story short, it was you know, basically 1 pound was gone in a couple days, and then after that, one turned into five, five turned into 10, 10 turned into 20, and then like by the next few months, I'm like delivering like 50 pounds of weed in my
In the
in
next what? Couple of months?
couple of months. Yeah, I'm just like rolling with, you
Damn,
know,
bro. So you were a big boy. You went from 1 to 5 to delivering 10 at a time.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know if what was a big boy or not. I'm just like there was a need and people needed it, and like I would fronting the merch, and they didn't have to like pay me up front, and most of the guys were good money. Like they would come back and pay up, and it was I was on consignment, so it was like a loan basically, and that's all it was. It was just me taking advantage of my position where the banks wouldn't give me anything. Like I would go to the banks and they'd run me out of there with a broom. Like get out, like we don't got nothing for you. But the dope boys, they were always like, "Yeah, we got you. We know where you're at. We know you ain't going nowhere."
So this is a strange situation where the streets gave you credit that the institutions wouldn't.
Exactly, exactly. And if they the banks would have gave me money, I believe that the situation would have changed. But the fact of the matter is, we go with whatever is available to us in our resources. And unfortunately, like myself and like other people that come from like humble beginnings and not really with that backing, those financial resources that a lot of people have. Maybe they don't have. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know that world where just people have money. I don't know what that looks like. So all I know was what it looks like in front of me in my neighborhood and what people had, in front of them.
I got you, man. We all have our local heroes in folklore. We tend to look outside in our own block before we look at the world as a whole. And so what's so okay, so you're now in the dope game, and you're still running your business. How far did you rise up in the food chain, and what was your downfall in this?
So we won't get too deep in it, like you said earlier. Like we're gonna keep it really, really basic and kind of like just get to the understanding on what really happened. But yeah, with everything that comes good, it comes with the bad too. So like you know, yeah, we were doing okay. I had a crew and we were moving and grooving. Moving weight, moving a lot of weed, and other people started messing with us, and now I have other suppliers giving me things, and now it's just becoming like a family where like everybody just trusts me with stuff because ain't nobody gonna just give you hundreds and thousands of dollars of merchandise and on the arm, which is on the arm means like on the front, like just credit. And but yeah, some accounts turned bad, people wouldn't pay, some people got arrested, weren't able to pay, some people got robbed, weren't able to pay. And then that's when I went from being into debt, like financially with the credits and the banks, to like now being in debt with the suppliers I was
Oh,
messing with.
so now you're in debt with the streets.
Exactly, exactly. So now I'm double whammy, and I'm like, here we go again. Like,
So now the creditors are calling you, knocking on your doors, and now the homeboys are rolling up on you and seeing what's up.
yeah, and they're mad. They were like, yo, like, where's the bread at? And then I had to go to my guys like, hey, where's the bread at? And then you know how things are with in that game. It's like people get arrested, and as responsible you know, guy that, try to like cover the losses and cover the costs on certain things, lawyer fees. I mean, cars getting impounded, things like that, and just the multitude of of different things that come with that game. And that's when I started realizing, like, oh man, this is not it. Like, this is high stress and high return, of course, but then at the end of the day, it ain't really worth it, because now you're owing more than you were actually making. So that's when all the started the desperation comes in, and that's when like we started dabbling in like other substances like cocaine got involved. Now we were like, oh, we're doing weed, we're good, we don't need to do anything else. But the cocaine game in Chicago especially was a hot commodity. And
So you're in the hole because of your building and the recession. So to get out of the hole, you start selling weed, pounds of weed. But then you get into another hole because people get jacked and work gets confiscated, and you're responsible. So
exactly,
then so then to dig yourself out of the second hole that you're in, now you move to bricks of cocaine.
exactly. And again, it didn't even start off with bricks like per se. Like, it's like, all right, well, like, here's half a brick, like it's that much less, right?
I mean, a
But
half
still,
key, whatever you want to
yeah,
call it.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it was just like, again, we knew people from all over, like people that had all kinds of drugs, and we were so like prideful of like, nah, we're not doing that. We're just weed guys. We want to just keep it clean. And plus, like, the guys I was messing with, they were also just weed guys. They didn't want to mess with anybody that was dealing with other things, and because that would make them hot. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like, we tried to respect that
yeah.
aspect as well. But when I'm owing them money, and desperate times make you do desperate things and making
Desperate
bad choices.
times call for desperate measures is a
That's even
phrase,
that's
but
even the better one. Yeah.
but Yeah,
So you're
so
you're American, like, I didn't grow up with those catchphrases, like,
lo siento, lo siento.
nah, when you coming from that, like, we don't really know those. What are those called? Like, idioms or something? Oh,
Catchphrases
whatever.
or whatever.
But yeah, so you get desperate and you start making dumb decisions, and that's why I advise people when they're in business, even a regular business, you got to stay focused and focus on one thing because you start spreading yourself out too much, you end up doing this. And I use this as an analogy when it comes to my business now. Like I was doing good with weed. Like why did I have to sell cocaine? Because the cocaine was what led me to getting indicted by the feds because the feds don't really care about weed. They care about coke and everything else, more like higher, like drugs like heroin and
Yeah, they
all
got a
those.
whole. For those that don't know, there's a drug table that they use for how bad a amount of drugs is, and I don't know how many. You got to have a lot of weed for it to equal 1 gram of cocaine. I think it's like 200 grams of weed, like
Yeah.
1 gram of cocaine.
And it was still considered a class 4 felony or something, or on the drug table, like weed. It's still like considered a
I mean, you need.
federally anyway.
I mean, you need like 500 kilos just to get the 5 year minimum. So that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
lot.
But again, desperate times call for desperate measures, and
So fast forward a little bit. Okay, so now you're in the cocaine. We can only imagine how serious that's gotten itself. So what what caused you to get jammed up?
so that was again, we were getting them for like 27, 28 a brick, and we're selling them for like 33, 34, and
And this is 28,000, and this is $33,000 for those that are not familiar for a single kilo of cocaine.
yes, and that was wholesale, but like we would break it down too, which is when you make more
That's how
money.
you make the money.
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing a little bit of both. And to answer your question, how we get jammed up, I mean, the other reason why we were high stress because we had a crew that was trying to rob us. And then if you look at me, like, you don't really, I don't know what a, I mean, I know what a drug dealer looks like, but I don't think I look like the typical drug dealer. Like when people like found out that I was involved with this, they couldn't even believe it. And I don't think anyone even knows what I actually went to prison for. Even my parents sometimes would even ask, like, I don't even know what you did. Like, I don't even want to know. But like, this is the real deal. Like, we
Well,
were,
you do have two charges, right?
yeah, yeah. I have two charges, but the point of to answer your question is we had teams that would try to rob these drug dealers.
These teams, for those that don't know, on the street are called jack boys.
Yeah, so they see
They're
drug dealers.
basically or armed criminal groups that try to target other people, primarily in illegal business, to find their stash and take it.
Exactly. And I mean, these guys were pretty sophisticated. Like we would find like GPSs like under our cars. Like it would be a routine where we take our cars to the mechanic to get them scanned to make sure like there was no GPSs on the cars that day. So it was like a serious thing. Like now we had to worry about people getting robbed, people getting arrested, and now us getting robbed, and like getting kidnapped or something. Our family get kidnapped. So there was a lot going on at the end. And this was 2013, and um, going back to your question, we got jammed up one day. It was June 2013, and all of a sudden, I'm just at the house, like just another day. It was like 5 in the morning, and the FBI shows up at my door with guns drawn, like freeze FBI, and the DA was there, IRS was there, ATF. I mean, all the alphabet boys were there, and
Dollars worth of drugs are off the streets this morning after a huge drug bust by Chicago police. They also have 24 people in custody now. In fact, here's some pictures of what police recovered. The evidence includes several pounds of marijuana, cocaine, and heroin. Officers also seized several legal weapons as well. Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy praised everyone who helped with the investigation.
bro, I had no idea what, how, where. Like, it was just mind blowing how it all happened, and I was just like, to keep it real with you, when that happened though, it's sounds kind of like messed up, but I had a little bit sense of relief. That's how tired
Relief?
that's how tired I was doing this shit.
Really? Now
Yeah, I was
that's not
doing
how I felt, but okay.
yeah 5 years of nonstop selling drugs, not one day off of this high stress, hundreds and thousands and millions really dealing with like all this cash that just runs through you. Like
You
it's
bought rubber bands too, right?
bro,
Of course you
rubber
did.
bands, cash machines. I mean, we were running this shit like I was running it like it was a business. Like it was we had whiteboards and
And
accounts payables. Like
what really kind of fucked you up too in terms of evidence that you were keeping that you
I
should never
mean,
keep in an illegal business?
yeah, I mean, definitely. They found everything. I mean, they definitely found like accounts payables, accounts
So
receivables,
they found your ledger.
all my ledgers. Yep, they found everything. Whiteboards.
I take it that at this point, you know, the jig is up. You know, you have the alphabet boys all up in your soup. So, the homeboys are getting arrested. They got your drug ledger. Where does the story go from here?
Story goes, we all get hemmed up. It's 23 people. We're all escorted to the federal building, downtown Chicago, and nobody knows what the hell is going on. And at the end of the day, everybody got these charges. Well, we're not even indicted yet. It's just when the feds get you, they just wrap you up. And all I remember is out of the 23 people, only 4 of us were hit with this count of like 10 to life. Everybody else under the 23 people was 5 to 40 years is what they were facing. And then when those 4 people that I'm speaking about was me and my crew, that's when I was like, life. I was like, yo, they could give me life. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, life? What are you talking about? Like, what did we do? What did they catch us with? They didn't even find anything on us at the time. But then once evidence came, we seen all the video footage and phones tapped. Everybody's talking reckless on the phones, and
The,
seeing all the ledgers, all that, all the footage and everything. There was nothing nobody could do. Like they got us.
for those of you that don't know how the federal system works, this isn't kind of like, you know, like the state or the local system where they got to catch you with a little bit of drugs, or they got to catch you red-handed. Or in the federal system, they're allowed to use basically somebody's testimony to or ledgers or whatever evidence they want to be able to determine your drug weight.
Exactly. So again, we won't get into it on this episode on like what happened at court, but I mean, I will say that after fighting my case, well, we were arrested. I got my bond in 6 months. After the 6 months, I changed my life around, got married, had kids. In 2018, I was still given 135 months for my first time nonviolent offense, and I turned myself in 2018, and that's when I started doing my time, and that's when we met in 2019, 2020, COVID era. And man, it's just been a crazy ass journey. There's a lot more to speak on, but we'll save that for the next one. I just want to I want to let people know that this podcast is to inspire, like I told you in the beginning, and I want to let everybody know that just because you've gone through some shit and like had some adversities and some difficult times, just know that you can get out of it. You can just change your life around, and even though you may feel like the system ain't fair and like shit happens, like I had no idea I would end up in prison, but there I was with people like David, other good brothers that I met and became friends with, and it's just like, you got to take with the balls that you're given and just, what I'm saying, like make the most of it. At that time, I studied my ass off, I worked out, I became a better person, became a better Muslim, and yeah, that's it. So I want to thank y'all for checking us out. This is the first episode. Stay tuned for a lot more coming. This is, a little rough around the edges, and just wanted to give you a little taste.
But before we go, to give everybody a taste of some inspiration, where are you at today? Because we got to your arrest, struggling business owner, trying to keep his business alive, got into the trade way over his head. Where do you stand today, released from federal prison a few years later, financially, as an entrepreneur?
Did I ask it one more time? Sorry.
Where do you stand today financially as an entrepreneur subsequent to these events?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm 3 years out since I've been since I was I came home in 2023. Since then, I started a brand called the 424 Group LLC. It's a brand. It's a real estate company and hospitality brand where we provide space, co-working, and creative space for members to use whenever they want and be around like-minded people that are business-minded and create in the creative fields, whether you're photographers, videographers, artists, just whatever is in that creative field. And again, it's like this membership club where you can work, play, and stay all in under one roof. We have a little hostel on a hotel on the top floor, event spaces, and it's a beautiful thing. We just closed on our second property. We got an SBA loan from that, and again, we use that as the 424 is actually the last three numbers of my inmate number, and trying to tell people that how you can turn a negative thing and make it into something positive, and hope to inspire people because this is really a deep personal thing for us, and we hope to help others in a similar situation as well.
Sometimes we go into business looking for material wealth, but we don't quite understand that we're destined to become somebody else before we can really see that wealth. Sometimes God is not going to reward us for being, weak and cowardly and taking the easy routes. He's gonna give us enough for us to learn our lessons and hopefully get out of that. But I could say that at least for me, I became a much stronger person after these experiences. And I could say now I put a lot more premium in how I go about doing things rather than just simply the end reward. So it's not for me anymore how much money I'm gonna make doing something. For me now, it's pursuing my goals in making financial gain. What kind of person am I gonna be doing it, and what kind of a person am I gonna be after it? Am I gonna be a cold, greedy, and selfish person, or am I going to be, a grateful, happy, and full of life? Because we both had the money, but neither of us had the peace.
All right. One final thing. Shout out to everybody that got dreams and aspirations out there that want to do something and you feel like something's impossible. Just know that if somebody like me, like myself, coming from an immigrant family with no money, bankruptcy, felony convictions, drug offenses, and a bad reputation, if I could come out of that and still follow my dreams, so can you. So peace and love to everybody out there that you know, still got dreams out there and want to do
Peace and
something.
love. We'll do
All
this
right.
next time.